Monday, January 9th to order. Happy New Year, everybody. If you'll join me with starting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ann, would you do a roll call?
Sure. Lyle.
Here.
Walters.
Present.
Cook.
Here.
Bartlett.
Yes.
M. Cortade.
Here.
S. Cortade.
Here.
And Friend.
Here, thank you. And we'll review the agenda. You have the agenda in front of you. First, we have some items, consent calendar, a few items under other items within the consent calendar, business before us, largely a report meeting, Grand Traverse County Road Commission. We have Steve Krnovic here with our financial review, engineering projects, East Bay Ambulance, and planning and zoning. We also will have our assessor here, Jim Baker, and our attorney that's handling a tax tribunal case. They'll get here about 8 o'clock for that possible closed session. And then a Hollywood Road Special Assessment District. So with that, if there's a review for conflict of interest, I will declare a conflict. I live in the Hollywood subdivision that is looking at doing a special assessment district. So I will hand that over to whoever you guys decide when that comes up on the agenda. With that, I would declare an agenda. Is there a motion to approve that conflict?
Motion to approve the conflict for Beth Friend at Holiday Woods.
Support? Support. A motion by Walters, support by Cortade. Any other discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Okay, and then who would like to chair that meeting when I step out? It'll be a really exciting agenda. You're just setting a public hearing if you do it, so. Okay. Mindy, will you chair the meeting?
Yes.
All right. Motion for Walters to take over the meeting during that conflict. Is there support?
Support.
Okay. Motion by Friend, support by Lyle. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. We have that taken care of. Approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay.
Support.
Motion by Lyle, support by Walters. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by no? Okay, we have an agenda. We have come to our first opportunity for public comment. So if there's someone here who would like to make public comment, they're welcome to make their way to the lectern and introduce themselves. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Correspondence and reports. You do have the treasurer's report in your packet, as well as the links to the earlier board meetings. I'm going to just try to remember to start to provide those links for you guys. I'm not providing the entire documents because it's just going to add a lot of paper to your packets, but that's just a prompt to remember, here's what the latest meetings were for the other subcommittees. So with that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. And Ann, would you go over that?
Sure. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one board motion without discussion. Any member of the board, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent agenda be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent agenda, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single board action adopting the consent calendar. This evening you have minutes, December 12th, 2022, regular meeting minutes, recommend approval. In the general fund, check numbers 17575 through 17625, paid in the amount of $130,387.65, with check number 17315 voided. Check numbers 5182 through 5201, paid in the amount of $42,411.75, with check number 5182 voided. In the receiving fund, check numbers 2888 through 2889, paid in the amount of $1,701.91. Escrow fund, check numbers 1898 through 1899, paid in the amount of $627. There were no checks issued from the roads SAD fund, and there were 2 payrolls. The first one dated December 4th through December 17th, 2022, check number 7487 through 7489, totaled $48,657.55, and included a check for $8,958.18 for payroll tax, and one for check number 7489 for $1,484.39 for State of Michigan withholdings. And the payroll dated December 18th through January 1st of '23, check numbers 7492 through 7482. Is that right? No, that doesn't sound right.
7481.
7492 through 7481?
7481 to 7482.
Oh, 7481 through 7482, okay.
Thank you, Mindy.
Total $54,657.98, and included $1490 and $329.82 for payroll tax. Total payroll is $103,315.53, and total amount paid, $278,445.84. There are no budget adjustments, and 4 other items: investments policy, seeds grant application, zoning board of appeals appointment, and the Traverse Connect agreement.
Okay, very good, thank you. Is there any item that anyone on the board would like to have removed from the consent agenda?
Don't need to remove it, but the board minutes,
Sure.
there's a typo here. And number 6 for the Sparks grant, it says $472. I think it was $472,000.
Okay. Very good, thank you. We'll make that correction. All right, so anything else? Okay, would any member of the public like anything removed from the consent calendar? Okay, we'll bring that back to the board. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar for Monday, January 9th.
Okay. Motion by Walters and support by Bartlett. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote.
Walters.
Yes.
Bartlett.
Yes.
M. Cortade.
Yes.
S. Cortade.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Lyle.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes, thank you. All right, now we get to the heart of the meeting. Business before the Township Board. I will ask that the board give me a little latitude in fitting in the possible closed session for the MTT case. As I said, they'll be arriving at a specified time, and we'll try to fit that in just after whatever we're in the middle of at that point, if that works well. But first, before us, we have some updates, and luckily, we have 2 county commissioners here that can both, welcome to provide some updates for us, and spent a lot of time in these gentlemen's meetings the week before Christmas, and very happy with the outcome for East Bay Township with two ARPA grants successful through there, so we appreciate your help and your support with those. I know that was a long process.
I can defend it with my attorney.
Well, I'll start us off. Rob Henschel, Grand Traverse County Commission. We had our meeting last week, our organizational meeting, where for the 3rd term now, I've been elected chair. So another 2 years serving as chair. I don't want to do it after that. So, but it is my pleasure and honor to continue to serve East Bay Township, and now with the new district, the northern half of East Bay Township and the southern half of Acme Township. So organizational meeting went pretty smoothly, I think. We've got 9 commissioners now instead of 7 as we did last year. 6 Republicans and 3 Democrats, if you're counting. But I think we all know that most things at local government are not really partisan issues, so no surprises there. But not a lot of business going on right now for the new board yet, but I will let Commissioner Nelson wrap up the end of the year from last year.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The end of the year, we had a quiet end of the year from the standpoint of a lot of other business. We had added, we saddle administration with a lot of big projects, software turnovers and stuff like that. But there was one very big project we had at the end of the year, and that was the awarding of $18 million of ARPA funding. We had 108 requests. We could fund about 30. We had $18 million, and we had 80-plus million in requests. It was a very, very difficult process because there was maybe a handful of that 108, 110 that you could look at and say, maybe that doesn't fit the requirements. But we had to say no to some really, really good organizations and good programs. So I think the chair and the board, I'm proud of the process we went through. It was difficult. I think a lot of us spent a lot of hours and lost some sleep going through the process, but we did it. And East Bay Township actually did pretty good. The largest award that was made, a single award that was allocated, was for the $2 million Acme East Bay Sewer Project. That is the redundant system for that. That's going to help support a lot of the growth that's coming out this way and coming in Acme. And we met with Supervisor Friend previous to that, and she helped lay it out for us, so I appreciate her help in explaining that.
Thank you for your time.
And the Pine Grove Daycare for $235,000 was able to get in there, and that's important for daycare. We tried to put it in some major buckets, and daycare is one of the ones we wanted to get to. Mount Holiday got $700,000 for some runoff remediation, some water for snowmaking, and I know that East Bay Township has been very helpful in getting that thing organized and making that possible. East Bay Fire Department, our ambulance department got their echo unit. We got $35,000 toward an echo unit. And Grand Traverse County Metro got $41,800, I think it was, toward say it for me,
Decontamination.
There's the word. Thank you very much. So we also set aside $5 million toward mental health infrastructure. We're going to wait and see that's a lot of money to spend. It's really important. We want to make sure we do it right. We also have $3 million coming from the state related to mental health for this area. So there's a lot of money to be spent there. $3 million was held out for the county. We're going to have some projects that are allowed under the ARPA that we may or may not use, but that also holds those funds aside that we can allocate under the exemption. There's a little less restrictions that way. Same with the $5 million. We don't have to follow. Some of the things we did were Goodwill Housing, $400,000, Michael's Bay, $325,000, Children's Bay Advocacy Center is just under $1 million, Grand Traverse Industries, $300K, Legacy Aviation, $500,000, which is a pretty interesting program, $2.5–3 million toward a center that will be training aircraft pilots and aviation, or mechanics, aviation mechanics and that type of thing, because we're a pretty big area for aviation training with NMC. It's a really good program, and they found a real lack of that. So it's a technical skill that we can bring from this area. So, a few other things, I just wanted to highlight a few. We understand that you'll be probably hearing pretty soon about the process you're going to go through next. We trust that, under Supervisor Friend, that you guys will be well positioned to follow the steps needed. So we wish you luck.
On that aviation front, I also serve, well, we both serve on the airport board for Cherry Capital Airport, and it is the third busiest airport in the state by employments now. So that's a big part of our community. It's right on kind of the corner of East Bay Township. Well, we kind of surround it a little bit, and we share it with the city of Traverse City and Garfield Township. But a lot of big projects going on there, and the aviation piece really made sense at the ARPA funding level, because we've already got NMC training pilots, and there's a huge need for aviation mechanics. So kind of saw that, it was kind of an odd one for us, but we saw that as something we could kind of stretch and diversify where we're spending those funds. It's important to note on the mental health front that we did not actually allocate that $5 million. We set it aside for a purpose. There was a request for $5 million towards a mental health emergency center, basically. And the request is from an organization, and we just didn't feel like they quite had their ducks in a row enough yet. They're still working on their, how they're organized, and who's going to be their fiduciary. And there's just too many question marks there, but we didn't want to miss the opportunity. So we set the money aside to be allocated at a future time for that infrastructure. When the board feels, okay, this project is ready, we can allocate it. And the process of ARPA for the county starts with allocating, and then it comes to obligating, and then essentially funding and fulfilling. So the first process we went through in December was saying, people asking for funding for their projects. Then we make the money available through saying, all right, we're going to put your name on this money. Then the contract phase comes, where whoever is going to be funded will have a contract with the county to provide the service to the community. That's the obligation phase, and then essentially through that'll be funded. And those are the things that have time limits on ARPA funds. So the federal government requires us to have those, everything obligated by the end of 2024, and all the funds have to be issued by the end of 2026. So that's kind of where we're at the ARPA. So it's not over yet. We suspect some groups will not be able to actually accept the funding. Timing issues and whatnot, they have to be able to obligate the funds and spend them within that time frame and provide the service to the community. So we probably will circle back, I'm guessing, on some of that funding, and it could go a different direction depending on who we issue it to. But for anyone who was issued funds, I've had this conversation with a couple of people in the community. If you're on that list of funding being set aside for you, contact Dean Bott, County Finance, as to what you need to do to next obligate the funding and get the contract in place with the county for you to offer that service to the community.
Yeah, I wanted to take the opportunity, as I did at your Board of Commissioners meeting, to thank Chris Forsyth, Nate Alger, and Dean Bott. They've been instrumental in administration and going through the process, and very helpful. Chris, in particular, super knowledgeable about the final rulings and, the first final rulings, then the final rulings, and all of that. So, very helpful.
I feel like East Bay won really big in the ARPA, and largely due to Supervisor Friend getting, I think she had the most requests of anyone. But she didn't just do that, but she actually reached out to us and helped us understand what the projects were, so that as your county commissioners representing you, we could get behind them and explain it to the other commissioners as best we could. And I think that all came together to really bring home a lot of that ARPA funding to benefit residents of East Bay. So as a resident of East Bay Township, I really appreciate that, and also representing ACME, that big ticket item of that sewer and water. I remember a couple 2-3 years ago, we had raw sewage coming up out of the ground, and we had to tell people, don't flush your toilets because we got to fix this line. And it was a big mess, to say the least. This will provide a auxiliary line so that those lines can be serviced, and if something happens, there's an alternate route for the stuff to go through.
Yeah.
And we can do a lot better in the long run. So that's going to help your grandkids. They're going to forget we ever happened, and they're still going to be benefiting from it.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for those comments. I will say we had good applications, I feel, because our department heads really looked through, what they were doing and working with their boards and what projects were of value to everybody and at the forefront. And they really worked through several renditions with the foundation and then your two information cycles to get that fleshed out. And to this board's support, very much appreciative of the support in having the grant writer and in pushing those projects forward to the county. So you had so many because we weren't quite sure what the county would value. And in the end, you're just not entirely positive, even though there's some really good outline and so forth. So we appreciate that. Is there any questions for the commissioners?
Just got a comment, Daco, that I want to have you go back, thank the rest of the board also for East Bay Township as a trustee.
Absolutely. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, we're all very appreciative. Thank
It's a
you.
process, so it's going to be, there's going to be some headaches and some nightmares and a lot of forms to fill out. And
Yeah.
all that stuff, so we understand that, and public sector consultants is going to help us with that process, and Chris Forsyth, and those are administration is on board with that, so.
Terrific.
I'm going to keep my hands off of it because I'll just screw it up. It will help you in support, even if it's you need someone to just, this is terrible, we get it, so.
Terrific, thank you.
And I'm not going to stay for the whole meeting. I've got a live stream meeting to watch between the Bulldogs and some. So I apologize for, some of you might be missing that meeting, but it's a very important meeting.
You know, last year it was Ohio State, so you can bet our meeting was pretty quick, but this year, they have a team, right? But, so it's not Michigan or Ohio State this year, so, you know, we're going to take our.
We have a meeting.
Yeah, that's why we have a meeting. That's right. That's right. Thank you very much. Well, very good. We'll move on to the Grand Traverse County Road Commission. Brad Kluczynski and Joe Underwood are with us. Thank you so much for being here.
No problem. There's a few things I'd like to go over. I'm actually coming up on my 4th year here with the Road Commission. We've seen a lot of things changing, but we are definitely moving into a GIS-based environment. This map right here, we've given a copy to Beth so that you guys will have it for this year. This is showing us where all of our projects are and what type of projects we have for this coming summer. So if you have a chance, you look at it and you have any questions, always feel free to give me a call or any of our engineering staff. Wayne Schoonover's over engineering. But one of the big things is we are very, very committed to preventive maintenance. And that means we've got a lot of chip seal and a lot of crack seal going on because those are the cheapest way to keep our roads in a long-lasting fashion. So we have been doing that for the last about 10, 15 years, trying to maximize what we can do for chip seals and crack seals. And as we move forward with the asset management plan through the Asset Management Council in Lansing, we have just recently submitted our 4-year asset management plan. So that is going to be available now that it's been approved by them on our website. So if you want to see, how we determine where roads get resurfaced and what we deal with on their end, feel free to get on there. We also would like to offer the opportunity for you as a township board to be able to sit down and look at the roads that we just do not have enough money to fully fund. And so we have our primary roads, which we've always been taking over the responsibility for. And in our last year, we just passed a new township cost-sharing program, at which point we also have absorbed another 120 miles of roads that we are 100% responsible for. These are roads that are high-volume, high-demand roads, but don't make the cut for primaries. So these are big roads that you'll see us starting to hit now, and that is mainly because we have reached the goals of our first phase of the asset management program. The state demands that we have between 85 and 90% minimum year over year that are in fair or good condition. So we are at that point now, and we are available now with monies to start spending it more into the locals. So you're going to see us doing a lot of these through locals, these busy locals out there, and doing a lot of these that have been kind of, people feel like we've been neglecting them, and it's not that we didn't want to, it's just we did not have the funds that we could spend because we had to get our primaries up to spec. So as we move through and we start looking at locals, we have the new cost-sharing program where each township is allocated a certain amount based on the number of roads and the population of that township. So each township gets a separate amount. We split $500,000 among 13 townships. $250,000 of it is split evenly by each township, so each township gets a 13th of that 250, and the other 250 then falls into that population and mileage. We allow townships to accrue 3 years plus the current, and that 3 years plus the current can be used on any project for up to 50% of the cost of the roads. So we can do that on all of our regular local roads, some of our feeder locals, some of our lower volume through locals. This is not for subdivisions or site development work. That is a whole separate program, which I'll get into. But The way these projects work is we have a GIS program now, which we've given to you as the township, that you can start looking at and start deciding how you want to allocate and prioritize roads within your township. So when you sit down and look at all of the through locals and you say, hey, this is a real big priority for us because we know we've got a lot of development here. We need to make sure the road is built up so that it's ready for the development, and we will take that into consideration as we put together the asset management plans for the townships. The other ones, the ones that we are not 100% responsible for, if you have ones that you want to do, you set your priority of those, and we start doing some of our assessments to see how much it would cost and what is available for you from us on that township cost sharing. The way our locals now work, our local subdivision roads are basically, we are going to do all of the soft cost. So if we are going to go out and you have an SAD that needs to be done, we're going to take care of all of the engineering, the design, the inspection, the testing, and the contracting. And that ends up being very close to 25%, but it depends on what the requirements are on the road and what the subdivision wants to see. The subdivision or the township or a combination of, we don't care where the money comes from, pays for all of the construction costs. So if there's a project that ends up going out to bid and it comes back at $180,000, that's what the subdivision is responsible for, but all of the rest of the cost will be borne by the road commission, whatever it takes to get it done. Seasonals still remain the same. We do not put any money into seasonals. If you have people that want to convert a seasonal to a full-time road, they are responsible for 100% of the cost. If they bring it up to complete county road spec, then we will start taking it over for complete maintenance. If they do not make it to that complete county road spec, we will not be able to move it out of the seasonal, which means we cannot plow it, but we can do more work because the road will be accepting of our larger vehicles. So the next thing we have coming, we started in November 1st, we released our citizen reporter. So if anybody is interested, they can now go to the Grand Traverse County Road Commission, gtcrc.org, and on the front page it says Citizen Reporter. And if you click on that, whether you're on a phone, a tablet, a computer, doesn't matter, you can then enter a citizen request for anything that we do. So if you say, hey, there's a tree down on this road, you can click on it. If you're on a phone and you have your GPS enabled, it'll take you right to the GPS map and it will show you where you are, and you just simply enter your information. If you enter your phone number and your email, we will be sending you out an email as soon as we address it and when it's complete. So if we go out and we see it, we'll say, yes, we acknowledged it. That is what we see. Also, we'll be out there as soon as we can to get it fixed. When it is completed, we will then send an email again, and this is all done by the software. So it will then send an email that says, as far as we are concerned, this has been fixed. If it is not to your satisfaction, please send us an email back, and we will deal with it like that. And that is, if you can send photos, that helps too. So we're making that one of our things that we're pushing forward right now to get people up to speed and be able to do these 24 hours a day as opposed to having to wait on able to talk to somebody. And it's a lot faster for people who are familiar, can deal with the phones. There's a lot of capabilities, and you can track your request on there to see what the status is day by day as far as how things are coming with it. So if it's a larger project that takes maybe a week, then we will put it in there and we'll put updates into it as far as what's happening and how much longer we expect it to be. So those are some of the new things we have coming here at the Road Commission, and we want to be as best of a partner as we can to help you guys find solutions for your road network. The software that we have purchased the license for the software, and it is your license to use. So if you have any questions or you want to start using it outside of the road network to do some of your own asset management, we have a GIS person in our office that can help. We have just recently, about 5-6 months ago, hired a second, and she's learning very quickly. She can help you with the road portion of it, but as far as developing new stuff, we would send you to Larry. And he is more than willing to either come out, or, if you guys want to come over, or if you want to have a special meeting that you want to see more details, we're more than willing to come here and do a special meeting, no matter how long it takes, to get you up to speed to see where we're headed. Some of the things that we have coming, by next winter, we will be able to show every plow that we own as it's moving and where it is on the road network. That will also then tell you when they've hit roads. So the roads will, once the trucks go through, will turn green. And then depending on weather, it will slowly move to a red status, which means it needs to be plowed again. But it'll go from that green to red as the snow falls. So that's something that we're looking forward to for next winter. We've got it on about half of our trucks right now. There are a few difficulties because you're dealing with a lot of snow hitting sensors, but it so far is working very well for us, so we have no concern of it being able to be complete and ready for next winter. That's about all I have.
Well, that's great. That's a lot of good information. Just want to let our board know, Brad and I talked just briefly before the meeting, and we were saying that what might be appropriate for East Bay is sometime in this first half of 2023 that we have a special meeting where we can take a look at that not software, the application.
Yeah, the application.
Again, and talk about, what input that we have in some of the roads and that additional funding. Right now, we're still in that period where we're just accruing funding, so we're fine there. And eventually, not that we would, but if a township didn't make a request for that funding, they would still utilize that township's money in that township. They would just decide what the project is. But still, I think we'd like to maybe go through and become more familiar with that. As you recall, we had Jim Schiffer here and Jay Seksuski and Larry were here and kind of unveiled that for us. I think that was in October maybe. But so that would be a good thing to do in the next few months here, I think.
And the way that works is when you hit that fourth year, so you're in the current, if you haven't made contact with us to say, hey, this is the project, then we will take the back end year. So you'll still keep 3 years, and then the following year you'll be up to 4, but if you don't do anything, we'll do that. But we will take that, it will not be on big projects though. It will be on the spot repairs that we see throughout the township that need to be addressed. So if we have some water holding areas, we'd hit those. Or if we have something approaching a stop sign that is just broken up, we'd pave that type of thing. But it wouldn't be for major projects until we start talking to the township and get your feedback for us so that we can be on the same page and design a plan for the entire township that's going to say, okay, this is where we're going to be next year, this is where we're going to be in 10 years, this is what we need to do, this is what the township needs to do to help us find these solutions and make sure that we're hitting the roads that you, as your staff, are getting the complaints on. Oh, yeah, one more thing, Joe. So one of the other things we also have been doing, before about 2 years ago, it had really been close to 20 years where the road commission hadn't taken an aggressive stance on ditching or on trimming back trees. So we've been doing it now for 2 years. This is our 3rd year coming in. By the time we finish our 5th year, we intend to be done with all of the mainline ditching. So the big roads will all be done. At that point, we're going to start talking to you because there are some neighborhoods too that are going to need to be ditched. And obviously, when you're in a neighborhood, everybody says, well, it's my front yard you're going to be talking about. But we need to get water moving out of there because that's what's killing our roads. The fundamental problem with every failure is water. We just have too much flow. We don't have control of it. So As we move forward with that, one of the things we'll be asking for is to be able to put something in your newsletter to say, hey, we're coming to this area of East Bay Township, and we're going to be here from this month to this month, so that we can let these people know that we're coming into their subdivision, we're going to be doing ditches, move your stuff out temporarily of the way, and then if you want to put some stuff back, flowers and that is fine. We do not allow irrigation in the right-of-way, so if we hit irrigation, it's kind of a problem that we have had in the past. We don't fix it. So if people don't move their irrigation out of the way when we start ditching, we are going to hit it. And we will explain that all in the briefing that we send out, hopefully with your normal newsletter.
Unfortunately, the irrigation companies don't always adhere to that when they install them, but,
We've
yeah.
had a lot of them that have just been hit. The other problem we have is the cable company, because instead of burying them 3 feet deep, they bury them about that far
Yeah.
under the ground. So we
Yeah.
end up hitting them routinely.
Yeah, Jay mentioned when he was here in October that ditching program and the kind of the culverts and that sort of thing. So, Joe, would you stand up and just introduce yourself and
Underwood, on the road commission.
come on up closer to the mic there?
Joe Underwood, Grand Traverse County, obviously, on the road commission. I believe I'm going to be the chairman this year. We haven't had our organizational meeting yet, but that's what's scheduled to happen. And I think I know most of you, so. Got any questions, give Brad or myself a call.
Okay, very good. Any questions further for Brad or for Joe?
Just some clarification. Brad mentioned that we should put it in our newsletter. Our newsletter only goes out in, twice a year.
Yeah.
So more likely, we should have it on our website.
Yeah, we can
because
do that.
can be updated all the time.
Yeah, we can do
But
that.
we would be giving you notice the year before to let people know, because we want to give them as much time as they can to move stuff.
Right.
And there are a lot of people who have beautiful stuff in their front yard, but we need to make sure we have, water flow too. So we would definitely give at least a year's notice to the township to say, hey, whenever you can, get this out there, but also, yes, if we can put stuff on the website. And we are actually in the process of having a brand-new website designed for us, so that is expected to be ready in July.
Well, awesome. That's terrific. Well, thank you very much. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, 3 Mile Road between South Airport and Hammond. Where are we on getting that fixed?
I don't know if that made it this year, I think.
It
This
it
did,
doesn't show on the map, but
Because we have one issue out there that we're still trying to resolve, but
there was grant funding obtained for that came through, I think, in March of this year.
yeah, so between airport and Hammond?
yes.
Okay, so that is going for design this summer, and that is going to be resurfaced the following year. So it's going to take in more than just the normal road that we would do because of the traffic volume there. We're going to get a little bit wider, and we're going to put curb and gutter on it so that we can control the flow of water, because there is a lot of swamp area around it. So we're trying to get some good designs put together to make sure that we're controlling water through that area. And we're looking at getting all of the design work ready and probably bidding it out in the fall for spring construction.
I know a few years ago, we had the moguls down there, and hopefully you'll correct that problem too.
Yeah, that's definitely, we see that a few places, especially, as spring comes around, where stuff starts pumping up and we get some pretty bad areas. We have one right in front of our office, actually, that does that, so.
Yeah, I think you're going to see, when talking with Wayne Schoonover, we're going to see quite a bit of work in the East Bay area between that section, Hammond Road. Trying to think there was another, but did you have a
Like
question?
flags on there.
Yeah, just, I don't know if this is something that y'all routinely monitor, but I was curious, after a couple of years with the new roundabout at 4 Mile, has there been any, I don't know, any quantification of traffic flow improvement or less accidents or anything?
Well, you got to be careful, because the roundabout is not designed per se to reduce accidents, it's to reduce serious injury
Yep.
accidents. And yes, it has for sure reduced the number of serious injury and massive damage accidents. There have been a few that still have gone through where people just don't stay in the right lane when they're supposed to be in the right lane, or in the left lane when they're supposed to be in the left lane. But we have seen a definite improvement in traffic flow. As we compare the airport corridor now, which is completely done with our scoot system, and we start looking at how traffic is flowing there, we're seeing an improvement there. And as we look and compare Hammond, we're actually now moving forward to putting Hammond on the same type of system to keep people flowing from Keystone all the way through 3 Mile and then heading out to that roundabout there. So, but it has improved flow. My engineer comes in that way every day, and
Okay.
he's definitely noticed it. But just as far as speed and timing, we have done some speed counts, and the speed is right where it should be as people are entering it, but they are consistently moving through. We're not seeing a drastic number of stops because people are finding these gaps.
Okay,
So.
okay, good.
Glenn?
Yeah, crack seal, does that fall under maintenance?
That's just a routine maintenance that we take care of on all of our majors and all of our roads that get resurfaced. Also, if you, as a township board, select a road that needs to be taken care of and you participate in a cost-sharing program with us, the road commission, as part of our new policy, takes care of all maintenance until it dies. So we will take care of the crack sealing, we'll take care of the chip sealing, we'll take care of the first overlay, and then at that point, it's ready for a resurfacing, reconstruct, and then at that point, we need to get back into a cost-sharing program again. But any of the maintenance on any of those 120 miles plus the primaries, we've done and we're going to continue to do. So,
I'm assuming that, I live out the end of Holiday Road, out in the valley. I'm assuming that's just a local road?
yes.
Even, okay.
Yeah, and so, we have a few subdivisions that have come to us in the last year that are doing mini SADs. They're basically going around to the neighborhood and they're collecting the money. And we can't accept money from the individuals. It has to be routed through the township. So they basically are going in, giving the township a check and saying, here, give this to the road, pay the road commission to crack seal. And so we've got a couple of them in Long Lake and one of them in Green Lake that are doing that this summer.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Do you want to share, too, the recent designation for the,
we can, yeah. So
just a little, just a tiny bit,
Okay.
because I know it's going to be a huge,
Yeah.
it'll be a big impact
It
for
will
you
be a
guys.
huge thing. So we have been waiting for the census results for far longer than we should have because of the pandemic, plus other things that occurred when Detroit sued the state and the feds. But we did find out as of last week, or 2 weeks ago, Friday, the federal government came out with the numbers and sent them on, and we found out about it on Tuesday that we have made the designation for an MPO, a Metropolitan Planning Organization. So what that means is then, over the course of the next 18 months or so, we will be working with the townships that fall in the urban area, which East Bay does have a lot of it in the urban area, and we will be forming the MPO. And that MPO will have the urban area, which is considered just the simple area of the urban area, but then we also have the study area. The study area will take up all of Grand Traverse County. So when you have federal aid projects, we can get more money, and we expect to see, over $1 million more a year for roads, but we expect that to be coming in. There's a lot of things we have to do as a requirement to be an MPO, but the federal government pays for us to do it. So that's not that bad of a deal for us, but we end up getting more money in, and as we start doing that, then all of the urban townships, which will be Acme, East Bay, Garfield, part of Blair, and part of Long Lake, I believe, hits in there. And then also Elmwood Township and Leelanau County will all be part of the true urban area with the city of Traverse City and Peninsula, sorry. And then the study area will take the entire county, plus the next township north of Elmwood, which I'm not sure what the name of that is, sorry. But they will all be part of the study area. And so anything that we do, if we start within a project and we have the project within the study area, as long as it can show a demonstrated benefit to the actual urban area, that becomes federally fundable out of the new urban classification for the metropolitan.
And so this week, is it on Thursday or Wednesday? Wednesday this week, the county chapter for MTA is going to have Networks Northwest's planner who's shepherding, doing the work for all of the MPO at their meeting, just to kind of go over what an MPO is and that sort of thing. Brad unfortunately can't make it, and I did tell him that any money that's allotted to the road commission, we'd be happy to allocate out for him at that Wednesday meeting, so.
Wayne will be there and Joe will be there.
Very good, very good. Well, thank you very much. If there's no other questions, we really appreciate you being here and the partnership that we've had on not only the roundabout, but on other projects. I know Claire and I are routinely in contact with either you or Wayne or Jim Schiffer, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, and feel free, Jim is going to be here for a while, dedicated specifically to townships. That's his main focus right now, is to get you and all the rest of the townships up to speed with everything.
Perfect.
Between that and Larry or Rachel, you got 3 good people that will all be willing to do whatever you need to do to make sure we can move forward.
Very good,
All right?
thank you.
Sure thing.
All right, have a good evening.
All right.
Okay, we'll move on to the financial review. Steve Krnovic is here with Manor Casterison.
And I only have 2 hours.
Easy.
We'll be able to announce the championship after. No, it's good.
The rest of the agenda.
It's good. Thank you for the work that you do for us.
Yeah, no. So just kind of a brief update. Mainly this past quarter has been working on bank reconciliations. We are kind of getting ready for the audit. I mean, now that your fiscal year end is done, December 31st, we'll be working on that. And we did a little bit of work with chart of accounts and helping Sue, and Sue got that submitted to BSNA. So now it's in their ballpark. To go through and do their magic with it, and I know that they're inundated with a lot of chart of account changes and so forth across the state, so I know it's taking a long time for them to kind of get back with us, so on many other entities that we're working with, so that was one of the things that we did a little bit of work on in this past quarter. And as far as I gave you the first 10 pages of the revenue and expenditure report is in front of you, and we'll just kind of briefly touch on that. We won't go through a lot of detail. I mean, obviously, it's full year, so we should be close to 100% or less on expenditures, and hopefully more than 100% on some of the revenues. This is kind of what we're shooting for. But this, obviously, there'll be a lot of adjustments that we'll make before we then turn it over to the auditors and so forth. So some of those things you might say, wow, what's going on there or whatever. Well, more than likely it needs an adjustment for, that, and I'll point you to some of those just to give you an idea. We talked today about coming in and doing the audit prep work and getting ready for the audit, and that'll be mid-March. I think the week of March 13th is what our plan is, and then the audit is scheduled for early April. So April 3rd, I think the auditors will kind of hybrid, I think, I assume, this year with they're on site for a few days and then, doing the rest of the work off site. So that'll be probably the next time in April when I'm here, it'll be, that'll probably be the week of the audit starting more than likely, or just after. So that'll happen. If you look at the report, those pages that you have in front of me, and I'll just kind of touch on the ABCs as they run down. And you'll see the current property taxes, those are all, right at ish percent. I mean, there'll be some adjustments there when we get into, into some of the final adjustments and everything, but those are hovering right at 100%, which is good. State revenue sharing, the B there is over what you had budgeted, which is good, and so you're at about 118%. And actually, there is a February payment that you'll get in February of '23 that'll then get booked back. So actually, you'll probably be, as you can see there, you're over about 184. It'll probably closer to maybe 384 that will have additional revenue there in total. And so that's a positive thing there with, as they talked about census and that type of thing, will drive that revenue sharing. So that'll be a good thing. And then as you can see, the next one, the C, is the cable franchise fees. That's an example of a receivable that will get booked there. So you see budgeted 170 and you've gotten in 136. So there's about last year there was about a $46,000 receivable that was booked. So that'll come in again, maybe a little bit more than the 170 that you budgeted. So that should come in pretty close. Interest revenue is done much better this year. As you can see, the D, it's just, there's a substantial more amount of revenue coming in on a monthly basis. The bank accounts are inching up a little bit. Class is inching up and so.
Yeah, just the last, probably, maybe 6 months, a
Yeah.
little less than that.
Yep, I would agree that it has been about the last 6 months that we're seeing $4,000 to $8,000 a month coming in, and that's kind of
That's
a nice change. It drives, everything else is going up, but, we're getting a little more interest revenue there. And then other revenue, under E, a couple larger items in there is there was a property tax penalty comes in, that's about $5,500, that came into that line item, and then there was a ordinance violation amount that was collected through the county that came into the township, about $9,400, I think. And so those two items, if you kind of factor those out, that other revenue is kind of pretty much even with the budget that you had indicated there at $5,000. Going through expenditures, again, looking at, obviously, should be at close to 100%. I mean, I kind of looked at things and said if it was close to 90%, I just moved past it just because we've got some, Sue was working today on accrued wages and so various different things like that. There'll be some payables that'll get booked and everything. So as you can see, township boards, right on track at 91%. The next page, supervisors on track at 92%. Elections is under budget there, and again, Sue and I talked about that today, and conservatively budgeted for 4 potential elections in 2022, and you had 3, so obviously that's a good thing. You're under budget there as far as F goes for elections. Assessor is under budget. Only the first 2 quarters are in there, as you can see under contracted services. So the county has two final quarters or half of the year to bill you yet under assessor. So that's why that is under budget in that area. Clerk right on track at a little under 90%. Continuing on to treasurer, again on track at 96%. Township Hall is under there at, almost 62% at the bottom of the 3rd page. Few things to point out there. Obviously, you didn't fill that receptionist position, so you can see budgeted 55 at the very top of that activity. No actual. And then expenditures towards the bottom, the capital outlay expenditures, that 3rd line up from the bottom, that repair replacement, that $7,500, you see no budget, but $7,500 in actual. That was the library furnace that was incurred this year. So, but in total, if you look at those 3 lines, the interior at $25,000, so less was spent there, and exterior of so some landscaping and so forth of that 40, and nothing was incurred there for for the township exterior building. So in total, Township Hall is under at about 62%. Going over to the next page, planning and zoning, that area is at about 82%, and as you can see, kind of starting at the top and working down, the planning and zoning office specialist was under budget, with that individual being on leave during the year. So that affected, that's a decrease in that area, but then as you continue on down under contracted services, there's an increase there. So it's a trade-off where you had a blight vendor, and then some of the supplemental staffing is in that contracted services for planning and zoning. So those two decrease and increase, net to that 82% for planning and zoning. Going over to the next page, there's a few of them here on this page, kind of getting towards the end of the general fund, and as you can see, the village center study. There is a final billing coming there, and talking with Beth today. So that'll probably be a little bit closer to budget, as you're under budget there right now at 68%. You've budgeted almost 45 and spent about 30, but there's an additional bill. Again, that'll be that example of accounts payable that we'll book back for audit purposes. The trail study there under K, there was a reimbursement of some funding, a little over 20,000, almost 21,000 of funding. And that receipt of the dollars coming in related to that OHM contract was posted there. In fact, I posted an entry right before the meeting to move that to revenue, actually, because it was paid out and then you got reimbursed for it, and those two were netted against each other, and we should have it at gross. So I made a journal entry there to the systems. That's sitting in the general ledger to be. So that'll be a little bit closer to, to being, like I said, reflected at gross. Still be under budget, but it'll be reflected at gross there for the trail study. And then the Bayshore L, that granting funding didn't come through, and so therefore there wasn't an expended dollars there for that Bayshore plan. Continuing on to the Parks Commission, kind of the bottom three in that Parks Commission area on page 5. The distribution of the grants was Mount Holiday, didn't apply, didn't apply in 2022, so there is no expenditure there, or transfer out of dollars. The Grace McDonald project at that 15 was not done in 2022. And the Arbutus Lake, that 100,000 that was budgeted, that'll be a 2023 project, is my understanding. So just some delays there and some expenditures that will be incurred, but it'll be 2023. And I think the last one for the general fund is buildings and grounds, and really that's at 69%. So there some ups and downs, as you can see. Buildings and grounds. I think the individual was on leave there also. So this kind of falls on pages 5 and 6. So you can see buildings and grounds keeper. Those expenditures are down there at the top line towards the bottom of page 5. But then if you go over to 3 lines down on page 6, you have contracted services up, and so again, kind of a trade-off there of an individual being on leave, so therefore contracting those services instead of having the employee in that area. And then at the bottom there, we were looking at that, and it was believed that was that embankment project, the capital outlay, so that did not happen in 2022, so you've got a budget but no actual. To come to page 7 in the general fund, you're at 96% almost in revenues, and about 72% in expenditures. Again, kind of two things, some areas that were budgeted that the project didn't happen, and then some payables and accruals and so forth at year end that'll impact there and probably utilize some of that budget before the audit gets started and completed for 2022.
And still some significant revenues to come in too.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. So even though you're at 95%, you'll probably be at substantially more than that when all's said and done. And the only other thing I'll point you to is there's the Metro is the next page. Again, there'll be some adjustments with property taxes and amounts to them on page 8. Going to page 9, which is the police fund. Again, property taxes will have some modifications there or adjustments there. But then looking under the contracted services line there, the fourth quarter is not in there yet. So as you can see, the contracted services on page 9 for police is at 77%, but the fourth quarter needs to be booked once you get that billing and everything. So that'll modify, that'll modify that amount and get it closer to budget. And then the last page is ambulance, and they're right on, right on track there, at, again, 102% of revenues, which will have an impact on the current property tax number will probably get adjusted a little bit, but still, be at, right around 100%, and then expenditures, there'll be some accruals and so forth, but again, I would envision them being not much adjustment there, to keep them at less than 100% of expenditure.
And with that one, you'll see, obviously, that we utilized fund balance, but that was planned for that capital outlay for the ambulance purchase.
That's all I wanted to cover. I know you got a lot of other stuff on your agenda, so I don't know if there's any specific questions. Like I said, I'll be back in April, and have a lot of prep done, and hopefully the audit, maybe field work will be done by the time you're in the next meeting.
Yeah, and Steve's been really helpful too to let us know about the single audit, like the $2 million from the ARPA does not necessarily throw us, from the county funding, does not necessarily throw us into a single audit, so that's a good thing. And also, I just wanted to mention real quickly that we've been meeting with Chase, and if you just kind of want to maybe encapsulate what we're doing, will be coming over the next few months.
We're entering into a payment card program where we can do like our utilities and things that are just normal every month payments. We're going to work with Chase to do that on a payment card, and we get cash back percentage off of whatever we spend on that. So we're going to work through that process. I think next week we've got our first meeting with them, so we'll get you more information as it goes on, but it will reduce the amount of checks we have to write and that kind of thing, so hopefully it'll be a good thing.
The goal
Sounds
is, yeah, the goal is most of our payables would be done through there as possible. Then what's left would be electronic funds transfer, and then your smallest amount would be the actual checks being written. Excuse me, and the revenue that we were looking at, I mean, it's significant. We were talking 10 to 20,000 in that range, depending on how much is through there. So that's an annual increase. Yeah.
I'm most interested to see how we're going to be able to show that with the tracking, whether it's that we have to provide statements or whatever to the board so that they can approve those post expenses. I know we've come from a spot where we now have you look at everything, and I'm still cognizant of that. It's not just going to be a blanket pay. It's still going to show how it all happened.
Yeah, one of the things, we've never done this before because, so for example, we don't put it on just the credit card necessarily because I hate to do that too much because when we go to put it in BS&A, it's really hard to research and track. You still can do it. It's just a lot more layers to go through and more cumbersome. But they have another process where when that payable goes in, you sign it right to the line item, and then it goes through an approval sequence that's predetermined. So for example, Nick will still approve the ambulance expenditures, and then they'll get sent to me, and then they'll get sent over to accounts payable. So,
Same process we do now, just less paper.
yeah.
Question. Question. We're going to get rebates back based on,
How much is spent?
did they explain how that works? I mean, why would they give us money to pay our bill for us versus if,
Well, it's just like any other, like a Costco card or Sam's Club card. If you have a line of credit and you get a cash back percentage, that's basically what this is.
do they then charge, let's say they're going to pay for lights. When they pay for the lights, do they charge the electrical company a percentage? Because that's the way a credit card works, is if I use a credit card, say at Myers have to pay whatever it is, 1 to 3% or whatever, to get their money. Is that the way this works?
I don't really know the answer
I
to
don't-
that. I know that we still pay the amount that's due.
Yeah.
So we still pay the same amount on the
You pay
electric.
the same amount, but does the person receiving it pay a percentage in order to get it that
I
way?
don't know, Cherryland Electric's revenue expenditure sheet isn't my deal, so.
Yeah.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
I think they probably balance it based, like you said with Meyer, if they're looking at it by, okay, well, we're gonna make this sale, we're gonna get our money quicker rather than somebody writing a check and having it bounce or, or whatever. So
Yeah.
maybe they have some sort of, they're almost hedging against, okay, well, we'll give a percent back to somebody if they use a card that we know we're gonna get that money, and,
Right.
yeah, I don't know.
It is, it's improving the timing that all of these people are getting their funds,
Right.
yeah.
And a lot of them do though, charge, like you said, Meyer pays 0.15, whatever percent, and, that's a fee for them, but they feel like it's worth it because they're getting Meyer is getting their money, or whoever it is getting their money quicker and more reliable.
And we're only using the firms that accept this for payment, so it's not like we're saying to them, oh, we're not using you because you don't accept this, and you must accept it, and you must pay this percentage. These are vendors that already accept this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, we'll let you know as we go further through the process. Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate it. Have a safe drive. Okay, with that, we'll move on to engineering projects. We have Wade Trim here, and then I do have one additional with Safe Routes to School after Brian is done. How are you tonight, Brian?
I'm doing very well. Good evening. Brian Souza from Wade Trim, for those of you watching from home. Got a couple updates on some development projects, and then an item that I want to talk about that's an action item that's in your packet. So first off, our Butis 5. I know Steve had talked about that project. That is going out for bids. Actually, the bid opening date is February 23rd for that project, so we'll be in line to start that as soon as frost laws come off the road. So good time to bid, late winter, early spring, so we should be able to take advantage of some good bidding climate. Hopefully, we get bidders. I mean, it's been a problem for a lot of engineering projects they just don't get bidders. I don't think this is the case. It's not an extravagantly large project. It's not a difficult project. So I think we'll have some pretty good interest.
We did have somebody out at that park taking pictures the other day, and I figured that was probably related to that.
Yep. So what happens is when we I think the average project is advertised right now. Contractors will take out bidding sets of plans, and really what that does is that gets their name on the plan holders list, so we know who's looking at it, who's going to bid on it, or who could potentially bid on it. And all that's right on our website. And what I'll do, Beth, I'll get you a link to that. So if anybody goes to your website and they want to look for it, there'll be a link there. It'll take them to ours. What I don't want to do is have the documents on your website and documents on ours. If something changes, then it's kind of hairy to get them all switched. So February 23rd at 2 o'clock here for the bid opening on our Butis 5.
28th. I thought you said 28th.
23rd. If I said the 28th before, I meant the 23rd. It's the 23rd.
I think Beth put it on the calendar on the 23rd.
It did, yeah.
Okay. I didn't see it.
Development projects, as you know, Bayview has been ongoing for a long time. Phase 1 was completed beginning of last year. Phase 2, water and sewer, is in, has been tested. They're in the process right now of going through the closeout. So getting their record drawings together, getting all of their documentation together, all their easements, and then submitting that to us for review for acceptance by the township. So that'll be coming at some point this year. So Alta Vista, sewer is completely in, and water is about 50% in for what they need for Phase 1. Sewer, they had to put in the whole thing, so that's done, but water is about 50% done for Phase 1. And they're still working, so with this climate that we've had and lack of snow and very cold temperatures, it's been a good winter for contractors to keep working, so they're still out there moving dirt and laying pipe, so.
So Brian, Phase 1 was just for their rec center, correct?
Phase 1 was, nope, it was kind of the rec center was included in that, but see, the difference between that, it was the clubhouse, I guess, is what we've called it internally. they were able to connect to water and sewer at Hammond Road, so they didn't need this water and sewer to come in for their development in order to connect to it. So that was kind of a little different process, but the north part of that whole site is really their phase one.
Okay. So the units that they
I'm sorry,
have-
the south side, sorry, I always get it switched
Getting
around.
really
It's
confused.
it's the south side.
The north
Get your
side would
compass.
be Vanderlip, the south side would be Hammond.
That's right, that's
Because you
right.
can see on the hillside that they've got some units pulled in, like they're getting ready to finish that part out and start putting those in.
Yeah, I think they're delivering units and just kind of parking them where they can at this point in time. So, you know, I haven't been out there in several weeks. I talk to the inspector on a daily basis, but I haven't been out there to see what they've got sitting there. So,
Thank you.
but yeah, sorry about that. It's the south side. That's phase one. Brigantine, they have not started water and sewer. So they did some clearing. They did some mass grading earlier this fall, earlier winter. But water and sewer, they have not started, and I suspect that they won't start until springtime now. So it's up to them when they want to start. We're ready to be there, but they haven't, and it sounds like they won't start until spring. Minton Apartments, that is pretty much done with water and sewer. There were some punch list items for what they had to kind of shore up, some things that were broken, some valves that didn't work right or got tipped over or whatever. So that's, you know, those are on punch list items. They've been working to get that done, and then they'll work on closeout documents, just like we were talking about with Bayview, and they'll also have to do with Alta Vista and Brigantine. So I'm sure we'll see that here in the near future, for closeout. So that's pretty much it for the development projects. Any questions on those before I jump into the Force Main project? Okay, Force Main project, you have a proposal in your packet from us. As you know, and we talked about earlier in the meeting, you received funds from the county ARPA. Covers about 2 million, roughly a little bit more than that, of the project. Project's estimated to be around 9 million. So that leaves you a gap of, let's say, $7 million to do the project. Many different ways to fund that. You can bond it on the open market, very similar to what you did with your water main project along Hammond and the new water tower. We can apply for funds through various funding agencies such as Eagle, their drinking water revolving fund, or their clean water revolving fund. Two different projects kind of fund the same type of work. And then there's other options. Rural development really isn't an option for the township because of your population. But the proposal in front of you is for us to do an application to Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, also known as Eagle, their Clean Water Revolving Fund. And that is a fund that is in place. Every year you can apply for it. They have a deadline for application. They let you know at a certain time if you're getting money. So it's an application to fill in that gap for the remaining $7 million on the Force Main project from East Bay Lift Station 1 to the wastewater plant. Applications are due May 1st. All right, and they would let those successful, well, they'll have a response to all applicants by October on whether you're being funded or receiving funding for that. The nice thing about this application, though, is it's not a one-shot deal. If you apply now, don't get funded, you stay in that queue for 5 years and you're reevaluated every year. You don't have to reapply every year. It's a 5-year process. Couple things to note with that program. They are the group that are getting most of the ARPA funds. So we talk about where's the money going and when is that going to come out? When is it? Eagle, through their drinking water revolving fund and their clean water revolving fund, they're the ones getting most of that ARPA funding funneled through them for these water and sewer projects. Because that is known, there are a lot of communities that are applying this year. This is the first year they'll have it available. They had 233 what are called notice of intent to apply. So in order to even get to this stage where I'm trying to take you, 2 months ago, we had to submit a notice of intent, just says, hey, we're East Bay Township, we're going to be applying, whether we do or not, there's no obligation, but you had to submit this notice of intent before you could even get to this next stage. They got 233 of those. They would typically have less than half of that on a typical year. It'll be, so what I'm saying with that is it's going to be very competitive to get funding. They are going to try and center their funding around what's called a overburdened community, disadvantaged community. It's all based on your average median household income and your outstanding debt for bonds. East Bay Township really doesn't qualify for that based on their process of calculating it. But one thing I need to note is they said they were going to revamp that process on calculating it. They haven't come out with that process on how they want it to be calculated. I can't imagine it's going to be a whole lot different than in prior years, but they're going to make some small changes. But so the way they've pitched it to us, it's very competitive. There's quite a bit of funding for it. There's about $500 million there for the program. But it goes fairly quick, especially when you're talking $10 million, $50 million projects. And the grant funding portion of that will be pretty much doled out mostly to overburdened communities. So what I'm saying is we can apply. We're more likely to get, if we get funding, it'll be loan funding that we'd have to repay. I don't hold a whole lot of hope to get grant funding in this cycle.
So
But you never know.
just to be super clear, there's two components to it. One where you get the loan, the funds at a very low interest rate, and then there is a potential to have some of that, say 20% or whatever it is, written off. And so that's the grant portion of it. And we definitely probably will not qualify for the grant portion of it, but that lower percentage amount.
But it does give you a good shot at low-interest loan money, correct? And you can spread that repayment out over 30 years or whatever, up to 30 years, so you can have it shorter if you want. So the application process is lengthy. That's why I wanted to get it in front of the board here right in January. It's due May 1. They do allow us to submit it prior, and they will make comments if they have time before the final deadline so that we can tweak some things. But it is a long process. Cultural resources is a whole side of things that we have to take care of. SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, reviews. So there's a lot of work to go into those applications. So the proposal that you have in front of you is to get that application done and submitted by May 1. And what it says in there, it's for a time and materials estimated fee of $40,000. Okay, now the reason I did that is, remember I talked about the state was revamping how that was calculated for overburdened communities. They're also revamping the application process as well. Why they wanted to do it now with the highest application rate that they've ever seen for 1 year is beyond me, but they said they would have the new process out in January or February. All right, it's concerning to us and other consultants because that's a quick turnaround. I mean, they tell us let's say it's February, we've got 2.5 months before this thing has to be done and in, and you got a public hearing, there's a lot of reviews to go through. Go ahead.
Do you need a section 106 culture
You do need a section 106, yep.
done and approved by SHPO?
Yes, not field work, so there's no field, it's more of a benchtop review on section 106. They will actually come out and drive the whole project area, look for historic properties, look for cultural resource issues. But from that review then, and when it goes to SHPO, they would then say, all right, we had one project where they came back and said, you need to go out and dig some test pits and things of that nature.
We have a project that they're making us dig up 20%.
Yeah, I see, that's crazy. I wouldn't expect that to be done here because the corridor we're in, we're putting it in a fully adulterated corridor of the rail, the trail, there's already sewer there. So it's not like we're going through a new area, which the projects we typically see a field review in, I don't know which ones what kind yours was.
Downtown
but
Detroit.
We were going through a new area that really wasn't messed with yet. So they didn't know for sure if they were what they would hit. I mean, even 20%, you're kind of just scratching the surface, right? So I
That's a
wouldn't
lot of
expect
digging,
we'd have
though.
a full, I would expect we would not have a full field investigation, but we do have to go through that process, yes, for the application. Which is why, like I said, they don't get us the information on how to apply or what they want to see until February, we're scrambling. Our direction so far in discussing with them is, look, you're going to change a few things, but you're not going to rework the whole process. So we know the highlight items you're going to want to see, and we can get going on those now, including those reviews. And we might have to tweak a few things. But that's my explanation on why I have it as a time and materials estimated fee, because I just don't know what they're going to come back with. And I can't wait until February to then start the wheels rolling.
Okay, and so with that, for the sanitary sewer force main replacement. Again, this is one of the funding sources that we're looking at, but in all likelihood, this is such a large project, we will be patching together funding sources. It makes it much more manageable to go and ask for, the feds, for 2 million instead of the whole, remaining, 7 million. So, and again, I think Traverse City put in for this and was not accepted the first time either, but was in the next year. But I could be wrong on that, but that's what my memory serves me. But with that, we'd be looking to look for a proposal to accept the, oh goodness, does someone have
I'll
their?
make a motion to approve the Wade Trim December 23rd, 2022 proposal for the Michigan Eagle Clean Water State Revolving Fund application.
Very good, thank you. Is there a second for that? Okay. Walters, and there's like 3 people, so pick one.
Matt, I heard.
Okay, very good. So a motion by Walters and support by M. Cortade. Is there further discussion?
I just had one question. The proposal is for an estimated fee with changes in the process. Could it go over this 40,000? This is like,
I'm trying, that 40,000 I was trying to be as a worst-case scenario, because what they're trying to do is streamline the process for application. So I'm hoping, I'm trying to be a worst-case scenario with that.
Remember, we have some of the work done in advance too, some portion of it as well, so we should be on the good side of that. Okay, any other questions? Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by no? Okay, well, we'll move forward.
That was it for me, unless you guys have any other questions or.
Ordinary, real quickly, water and sewer ordinance and rate analysis. I just got Brian and John DeVozo and Don Lund together to kind of reignite that process to come back to you guys on the first half of 2023 and taking a look at that. So that'll be a good thing. And then the ordinary high water mark determination as well.
Yeah, so what that is, in a nutshell, is all of your projects that are built around in the Forest Lakes Overlay District area on the water, you have to have a ordinary high water mark determined, and then your setback is determined from that ordinary high water mark. Problem is, a lot of the residents don't really know what the ordinary high water mark is. It's kind of a line that you can't just walk out there and say, hey, I see it, there it is. I mean, you can with a trained eye, but. So what we want to do to try and circumvent issues with those applications and with those developments is to go out there with the survey crew, locate the ordinary high water mark of the lake, actually survey in that elevation so that we know what that elevation is, and that'll be the same for all those properties along that specific lake. And we would do that for the lakes that are within the Forest Lakes Overlay District. I believe that process was approved by the board last year, November or December, for us to do that. So we'll be picking that up here in the springtime. We may even start it here in the wintertime if weather stays mild. The only thing I got to worry about is frozen lakes and ice shelves and that kind of thing. Because we got to be able to see the vegetation line on the edge of the lake and that kind of thing. So.
And Brian, we did have some public input and questions on the ordinary high water mark. Were you able to review that information, and are you, any input or effect on the process you're doing?
I was, and there was a citizen that came in the last meeting and commented on that and mentioned that they were hoping it was going to be not just an engineering determination, but also surveying, so that we had an elevation that could be reproduced and not just something that was arbitrary. So, and that's exactly what we plan on doing. It's our surveyors, they're going to be doing that. They do this for a lot of projects. Determining the ordinary high water mark is not anything that's overly scientific. There is a process. But that will all be surveyed in with benchmarks, so that can be reproduced by other users. So, but yes, I did watch the information cleared, sent over some information, watched that. Did watch your meeting, listen to those comments, and I have no problem with what was said and the direction we're going.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Awesome. And you're right, we did approve that, and that was in our budget, and so that'll be terrific to have done this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
You too. Okay, and we do have one other thing under engineering. Prine and Newhoff, as you know, is working on our Safe Routes to School. They did the grant application, and they're working on the first part of the engineering. And as you can see in the packet materials, that we had notification from the Road Commission where they were going to be supplying the survey work, and they're unable to do so due to some staffing issues. They do have some information that Prine and Newhoff is trying to get out of there, so to extract, so that they don't have to do absolutely everything. But if they do need to do all of the surveying, it would be, that was $17,020 was the estimate. And so what we're looking for is the ability to do up to that $17,020 for the survey requirements for the Safe Routes to School grant. Any questions on that?
We have GL or budget?
I don't have that, and that's not in the budget for 2023. That is one that we'll have to go back to and put in. I will say we have spent less so far than on those trails than we anticipated, and
Sounds like we're going to do okay on 22.
yeah,
So we'll have some fun bathing.
yeah,
Okay.
yep.
I
So-
would make a motion to move to approve the $17,020 for the survey requirement for the Safe Routes to School grant for East Bay Township.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
Okay, motion is made by Bartlett and supported by Cook. Any further discussion? Yep, go ahead, Matt, and then Mindy.
Definitely support this, but I was curious, the road commission, is this a commitment that they backed out of, or was it?
It was with us working with them, Claire, Connie, and I, interfacing with the road commission and saying, okay, here's what we need to do for the next step in the Safe Routes to School. What would you be able to help us with? And they offered up the surveying. And so if you look back in the minutes when we approved this first phase, it actually says in there, and I think on the last line, it says, I think I said it, we think that the road commission will be able to help with the surveying. So that was their intent, but when rubber hit the road, they weren't able to provide that as outlined. No, there wasn't a contractor or anything.
They were just
Nope.
doing this in-house?
Yep. They were going to be out there, they felt, surveying for part of Hammond, and thought that they could just kind of veer a little further and a little further east and further south, but like I said, they ran into staffing issues. And our intent is not to delay the Safe Routes to School project, the pace that they have us on through the program. Mindy?
On the motion, was it up to 17,020? I didn't hear that, so I just wanted to double.
Read it right off. her
Okay.
paper.
I didn't hear it, I just wanted to double check.
Okay. Okay, so there is a motion by Bartlett and support by Cook. We had further discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by no.
No.
Okay, you should have the record show M. Corte dissents. And we will move forward to, actually, Claire and Nick, are you okay if we interject? Okay, so we're going to move to a potential closed session. We have Tom Greer here and Jim Baker here for the center ice. I do have the attorney-client privilege letter. Tom, do you want to step up here, maybe just help us with that motion? Sure. So I think the motion would be to move to enter into closed session for the purposes of, and I think I might have even had it on the sheet.
Possible.
Did I? Oh, no, I put none at this time. How about that? Okay, move to go into closed session for the purposes of discussing the attorney-client privilege communication from legal counsel related to pending litigation for the Michigan Tax Tribunal case, and I have the docket number for the center ice, which is number 18-001093-TT.
That's fine, Beth. You want to go into take a roll call vote? when you go in.
Okay.
Maybe just add the word written in there too, written communication.
Written attorney-client privilege. Okay. Is there support for that motion? Okay, motion made by Friend, supported by Bartlett. Any comments or questions?
You are requesting that, correct?
I'm sorry?
You are the one requesting that we go into closed session?
I'm recommending it, I'm not requesting it. I mean, that's up to you all as the board to do that. I mean, I'd recommend it because there's confidential material in here and here's settlement offers and things like that. But that's not up to me, that's up to the board to go into closed session. But I'd recommend it, as a written communication.
Okay, thank you. Could you do a roll call vote, please, Ann?
Sure. Friend?
Yes.
Bartlett?
Yes.
S. Cortade?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
M. Cortade?
Yes.
Walters?
Yes?
Lyle?
Okay, we'll move into closed session. We probably will have everyone just step outside and we'll stay in here real briefly. Can you cut the audio and the video?